EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2 is at one point the most controversial game ever made that completely changed the way that monetization worked in video games. From slot machines that basically forced people to spend money and gamble for literal in-game advantages that got Disney involved, to the current day where we have to grind away like slaves to get a cool looking skin in the battle pass. Slot machines and angry mice aside, Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a game bogged down by EA's greed that made a lot of people come to the conclusion that it was a bad game that wasn't worth buying. I know this because I followed the story closely at the time, and most people I knew refused to buy the game due to its bad press. I mean, EA did deserve the backlash. Forcing people to gamble real money for in-game advantages like getting Darth Vader because getting him for free would take 40 hours is pretty scummy. No, little Timmy, you can't play as your favorite Star Wars character until you do more grinding. Forcing children into work may be illegal, but we'll get as close as we fucking can. But EA getting mauled alive meant that the discussion around the quality of the game itself was buried, and a lot of people, including me, never got to see the potential of this game until years after its release. While the game had occasional spikes, it remained fairly small for a while, averaging a few thousand players on Steam. I got the game on Epic Games for free, and while I enjoyed my time with it, I eventually went back to Destiny for the 50,000th time. But this huge boost in not only the Star Wars IP in general, but the media buzz around the game got me interested in jumping back in again. So what happened to cause this game to skyrocket in popularity again? In order to find out why, I hired a legion of virgins to discover the answer for me. And after sacrificing a few body pillows and art commissions, they came to the conclusion that it was a recent explosion from the Star Wars IP from all angles. Andor got a second season, the best Star Wars media in an incredibly long time. The Revenge of the Sith reappearing in theaters, Fortnite getting a Star Wars themed season, and Destiny 2 announcing they're going to be getting a Star Wars themed expansion this fall. While AI Darth Vader being anti-vax is funny, it doesn't get people immersed in the war part of Star Wars. Battlefront 2 does. So with a hefty sale on consoles and word of mouth reminding people just how good the game was, it was only a matter of time before it passed the previous population record on Steam. News of the record being passed only sparked more news, more discussion, and people flocking to the game to become immersed in the perspective of a clone during the Battle of Geonosis. It also helps that for a little while now, Star Wars has been out of the constant shitstorm that is online discourse. Because while I'd like to say what's left of Lucasfilm and the slave-supporting monopoly that is Disney learned from their mistakes with Star Wars The Minge and Gorges, I don't really think that's true. Skeleton Crew was still dog shit, and I think they learned to shut the fuck up and give us what we already like. Which I guess works when you're desperate. Anyways, with that out of the way, how is the game? Well, I enjoyed it. A lot more than I thought I would. I'm not even particularly a Star Wars guy. I've only seen some of the shows and the movies besides Solo, but I'm far from the comic reader or the bread circus. Speaking of Solo, the single-player campaign is probably the weakest part of this entire game. I like the concept of playing as an elite force for the Empire. It was made doubly interesting when it takes place shortly after the Rebels' 9/11, the second Death Star. Playing as a ruthless Navy SEAL-style Empire force doing anything possible to gain back strength, and the Rebels being seen as a deadly force closing in on you, it was an interesting perspective, and it made my mind run wild with ideas and curiosity for where the game was going. Then, the big bad Empire guys who are totally loyal to it switch sides on a whim, and they conveniently meet every single Star Wars character from the OT. I quite liked the stuff with Luke, and I was fine with Lando, sure, but did we really need to meet every single character from the original OT? It felt like EA and Disney needed to include these characters to remind people that this is, in fact, a Star Wars game, because the art style, music, distinguishable icons that are commonplace throughout the game didn't tell me that this was a fucking Star Wars game enough. Please, show me Darth Vader and make him do his iconic breathing while playing the Imperial March. Wait, no, they don't do that. Instead, we got the edgy loser who's as consistent as Kanye's feelings on the Jews. The aforementioned stuff with Luke was honestly the best part of the whole game story-wise.
What happens now? We both walk off in separate directions and pretend like this never happened.
I don't think you can. There's still conflict in you.
Of course there's conflict in me. I'm not blind. I know what the Empire is capable of, but what else is there?
A choice?
The rebellion?
No. A choice to be better. May the Force be with you.
Although I think spending a fraction of the time playing as the space Nazis only to be forced to be good was made a bit better by just how good the dialogue and the character moments between Del and Luke are. It's a story that left me underwhelmed and made me feel like this would have been a much better narrative if it was made 10 years earlier when Disney wasn't playing with the corpse of this franchise. Narrative disparities aside, the multiplayer is fucking great and the main reason why anyone plays this game. It includes all 3 trilogies of Star Wars with other shit in between, with distinct areas and fun locations to fight in that are all just as visually stunning as the last. I cannot emphasize enough just how drop-dead gorgeous this game looks despite being almost 8 years old at this point and still running incredibly well, while looking better and being way better optimized than a lot of games released since this one came out. I mean, hell, just look at a lot of the games that have come out in the past 3 years. A lot of them struggle to even get this level of graphical fidelity, and even when they do, they require a 4090 and a blood pact just to run at 60 FPS. This game runs buttery smooth on my laptop while I'm recording. You can't get much better than that. DICE was really on some shit when making this game, and regardless of how deployable EA is, they do a great job at making their employee abuse worth every penny. The gameplay itself is fun, and although you could easily write the game off as Battlefield but it's Star Wars, it does enough to distinguish itself from the former to give you an experience that doesn't feel derivative. If you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed the little bar at the bottom of my screen whenever I run out of ammo. It's your traditional cooldown process for certain weapons, but there's a small gap in between when you can start opening fire and receive a portion of the ammo in your magazine. It's not exactly setting the world on fire, but it was an interesting way to make the game unique from all the other games that DICE routinely makes. The class system also feels pretty good here. We have 4 classes, just like insert DICE EA game here, and as per usual, they all feel distinct enough to fit a role you're feeling at the time, and none of them feel like the waste of a slot. Which is a surprise, since I thought the commander sounded stupid and gay, but using him for just a few minutes proved that maybe I'm the gay and stupid one all along. And if you think I'm going to explain how the class system works, I don't have a lot of time here, and you have a browser. You can use those fingers of yours, can't you? Alongside that, we have special characters and vehicles that you can summon by acquiring points by doing stuff in the match. These specials range from a clone with a jetpack to Luke Skywalker and are all incredibly fun to use. Except for this droid thing. I genuinely hate it, and whoever designed it was clearly spiteful that the concept was even brought up to them, and decided to make it control like a teenager who's drunk for the first time. What's also super disappointing is that other players can't jump into vehicles with you, so don't even think about doing stupid shit with your friends. Darth Maul is bearing down in our position, and if we don't take him out soon, we're gonna have a worse end than the sequel trilogy. While there are a variety of modes and even a selection of PvE content, that, I might add, has enemies that hit like trucks, I usually gravitate towards whatever the game's equivalent to Operations from Battlefield 1 is, and I usually stick to that. And that mode is Supremacy, a mode that is honestly a lot of fun. While not as good as Operations in my opinion, it holds a lot of that push and pull feeling that I love, and also manages to solve a problem that I have with Operations. That being that some of the maps favor attacking or defending teams, meaning that if you end up on the wrong side of the stick, it's going to end up getting shoved up your ass. Supremacy is different, with the main mode being Conquest until a team captures all objectives, with the match switching to the opposing side's ship, and the attack and defense style gameplay begins with a couple changes in objectives before destroying the enemy ship and winning the match. But fighting on the enemy ship doesn't mean it's going to continue until the ship is blown up. You only have a certain amount of time to take down the ship, and failure to do so will kick everyone back into Conquest, and it's anyone's game from there. You could be incredibly close to winning, getting kicked out of the ship, back on a Conquest, and that's all the enemy team needs to pick up their shit and completely switch the game back on you. It's happened to me before, both on the winning and losing side of it, and it feels great. It's not just dynamic, but it completely changes up the match and keeps it fresh. It's also a ton of fun, and if playing it for hours on end already isn't enough of an endorsement to pick this game up right now, especially if you're on console with the game being as cheap as it is, maybe you need to stop being such a fucking prude for once and enjoy something. Sorry, that got kinda hostile there. Anyways, new content soon. Apologies for being gone for so long. I've been dying of the common cold and dealing with dust storms. But I'm back now. And what's next is juicy as hell, so see you then. Bye.
We were so close.